it's Moonie Devereaux, and welcome to a Good Laugh podcast.
And I'm Jess Desvarieux, co-host of the Good Laugh podcast, and welcome to our writer's room. Today, we are joined by a special guest, comedian, writer, singer, drummer, Rita Brent.
Hey. What's up, Rita?
What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for having me on. Congratulations on starting the podcast. That's a big deal.
Thank you so much. Well, let us have this opportunity to give you your flowers and let our audience know about who you are as an artist, okay? So Rita Brent is an award-winning comedian, musician, and military veteran. She served as a drummer in the 41st Army Band, ending her time in service as a sergeant. Okay, sergeant. In 2013, she made a big leap into stand-up comedy. Now she tours as an opening act with her mentors, Ricky Smiley and Cedric the Entertainer. She's written for the Emmy Awards, the People's Choice Awards, and Standout and LGBTQ Celebration on Netflix. Like, that's not a lot. She also produces and stars in her own late-night show, Late Night with Rita Brent, which you can check out on YouTube. Welcome to the show, Rita.
Oh, man. Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing, Rita. We do like to start off our show by giving our audience a little taste of the comedy of our guests. So let's take a listen to a clip from Rita's late night show. Check it out.
But I started paying attention to Trump. Like, he does have some superpowers. You know, he has, like, the art of persuasion down. You know, you remember when he first came on the scene, everything, all the accusations, he kept saying it was fake news, fake news. You remember that shit? Fake news. He always, like, he eats some spicy shit. Fake news. That shit get in your spirit. Fake news. Them damn student loan people called me, they said, you owe $10,000. I said, fake news, bitch, fake news.
Oh my God, it's so
I love
good.
how the audience responded, like a call and response. They're so in it. I think that's like the genius of your work. So good.
Does that just
thank
come
you.
to you, Rita? Like, how did that joke develop?
Well, you know, as a comedian, you're always studying
Mhm.
the physical behavior of folks in office. And I think Trump is probably the easiest to study. You know, a lot of his movements are redundant and a little goofy. So that was just, that was low hanging fruit, to be honest with you.
The spice part of it, like just that act out, like just that connection, like how you were just like, that's what it makes me think of, and you went with it, right?
Yeah, it took me a while to add that part. So I've been telling this joke for a while, but I'm like, something is missing, like right before, and that setup right there. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. I was trying to figure out what is that sound, you know? And then I was eating hot Cheetos one day, and I did that, and I was like,
Oh, the
it's like he's
flavor
eating
hot
something
Cheetos.
spicy.
How
Yeah.
appropriate. The orange.
It makes so much sense too that you're a musician. Like I love that you said that like something sounds off. Like you know that there's a rhythm to joke telling.
Well, absolutely.
I don't like they liken that comedians and musicians are very similar, right? Because writing, like comedy is similar to just musical composition, right? Being able to pause
Oh
at the
yeah.
right time to crescendos and timing and pacing and beats.
Oh yeah, I would loop DJs and preachers into that as well. You know, when I'm listening to a preacher, we all know Joel Osteen starts with a joke, but the rhythm is everything. I was at an Easter church service, and the pastor got going, and you know he's like, "And God said, do this, do that." It's all rhythmic, you know. So that's probably why you don't hear white preachers doing that a lot, because rhythmically it would be a challenge.
Doesn't come as easily.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
That's funny.
So we like to kick off the show, Rita, with all at the top, just talking about our weeks and what brought us a good laugh. We started talking about Trump, but we all know that's like Debbie Downer news. And this is a podcast where we can just like have a woosah moment and come together and connect through laughter. So Moonie, why don't you kick us off? What brought you a good laugh this week?
Oh my God, so many things. Something that just came to mind just happened today. So corporate America, that's my day job. And so, someone sent an email, a mass email to all these different departments. And then so these dumbasses, they'll start replying, all be like, please remove me from this email chain. And like 40 people start doing that and flooding your inboxes. And me, Jess, I love to mess with people. So of course, like at the end of the day, I'm gonna let people breathe for a little bit. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna drop my little reply all, just to fuck with people. So that brought me a good laugh, just like the absurdity of it all.
That reply all thing is funny.
Yeah.
I had somebody on a professional email and they replied all, and it was not a message meant for me.
Right.
And I just messaged them on the side and I was like, hey, you hit reply all. Just be careful about that. I'm glad it wasn't about me because it was somebody I was paying for a service. But yeah, they're older. You just didn't realize what they were doing. I thought it was hilarious.
What about yourself, Rita?
I have talked sometimes in my comedy about my relationship with my dad. It had been strained for most of my life, but we have since reconciled. And I talked with him this week, and he was just saying that he's having some health problems. And he was like, yeah, baby, they told me to stop drinking. And he's like, but I don't want to. I was like, but Dad, the drinking contributes to inflammation. And he was like, I know, but I'll be mad if I stop drinking and I still die. I was like,
great point, Dad. Great point.
You're like, stress also kills you. So
yeah, I said, man, suit yourself, man. I can just picture him in heaven, like pissed off, like, damn, I should have had that last beer.
That's
But
right.
so that was funny to me that he, justified. That's his justification for still drinking. So that was funny.
So how do you feel like being like now that you've reconciled with your father? Do you feel freed? Do you feel like a weight's been lifted off your shoulder? Like, and how does that affect perhaps maybe your comedy?
Yeah, I was carrying anger for a long time and I was fixated on forgiving him. And then I just got to thinking about it and I was like, well, the forgiveness, it has nothing to do with him. It has to do with me and letting go of grudges and any kind of inner stress that I'm feeling. So, and I will be honest, I just kind of lowered expectations. I'm like, so much time has passed. Certain things just can't be rectified. So we might as well focus on the relationship we can, build now and in the future. So yeah, weight has been lifted. I'm pretty chill. I won't say that I'm indifferent or numb because when we do talk, like he's really funny and I realize that my personality is a lot like his. But you also have to think about folks' background. I don't know what kind of father figure and all that stuff he had while he was growing up. So it's always a root to things. So, as you get older, you just see things more clear and it's healthier to not be angry. So I just decided I'm not going to be angry and I'm going to accept what we have for what it is. And that has been great.
Love that for you. So when did you know that you were funny, Rita? Take us back to that moment or moments or
probably as a child. I don't think I knew I was funny, but the people around me knew I was funny. So my mom always telling stories like I would be in the grocery store and just poking holes in meat, just doing goofy, dumb stuff. Just a little kid finger just poking holes in the meat.
Right.
I don't know if that's autism or what, but I was doing stuff like that. But, now that I'm a comedian, all the folks from my past, whether it be the basketball team or the band, they're like, yeah, you are always the funniest person in the room, looking for an opportunity to be funny. Now, back in the day, it probably came off as that I was a nuisance because I was always picking and just doing the most, trying to get a laugh or get attention. So I would say from a young age, but I didn't desire to be a comedian. I just knew that laughter broke barriers and lightened things. It lightened a lot of things for me.
Did it rise to the level of being like a class clown in school or no?
Probably partially, but I was also a nerd. I never had lower than like a 3.8 in high school or college. Yeah.
That's right, Rita. Get your scholarships on.
Yeah. So I was able to balance both, the goofiness, but I was going to get my lesson, But yeah, it just seemed like a way to connect with people, and I was the type, if I saw somebody sad or being neglected at school, I was the one trying to put a smile on their face. So I don't know. I see a lot of my teachers out now. They don't say I was a class clown. They just like, I knew you were gonna make it, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. I always I've been a camp counselor, right, and a teacher, and I always used to gravitate towards those kids that were kind of bad. You know what I mean? Like not the super obedient ones, but the ones who like push the envelope a little bit, or have that sense of humor or think about things differently. I get that. I can see your teacher's perspective, kind of like, yeah, that one's gonna make it because she's a rule breaker.
Yeah.
She's gonna find her own path.
They're fun. They're entertaining. The bad kids, right?
Mm-hmm. But I was always doing some kind of performing. So I was in the talent shows. So I got stuff like class favorite, most talented, things like that. So I was always performing. So I've been preparing for this comedy life my entire time, my entire life. I just didn't know it.
Did you think you were going to be performing as a musician? Was that
Oh
like the
yeah.
main goal initially?
Oh yeah. I played drums up till like professionally up till about 23 or 24. But yeah, I've played with bands all over the world. In Amsterdam, Belgium, playing with blues artists. And so that was a goal. Like, oh, I want to play for Prince or Beyonce, somebody like that. But honestly, being a drummer is hard because you have the most instruments, you have the most hardware. And I was just tired of hauling all this shit. I'll be honest with you.
Back breaking.
So, and unless you play for somebody really big, if you're just doing local performing, it doesn't pay a whole lot of money. You might do a 4-hour gig and get $125. You can't
Mm-mm.
survive off of that.
No.
So, by the time I started doing comedy, I was like, wait a minute, I can just take my body and talk and make this same amount of money or way more, and I ain't got to carry shit. No, I'm good. I'm good on the drums. So I can still play, but nah, you'll be hard pressed to get me to go back to being a musician full time.
Did you ever have any doubt or fear getting up on that stage and just bringing yourself? Like you are
Mhm.
literally saying, here I am, I'm on display. It's not, here's my talent, here's the music. It's Rita. Was that ever very intimidating for you?
Yeah, and I tell this little anecdote all the time. There was a period in my life where I would say that I was fearless, that I'm just doing it big. I'm moving, I ain't scared of nothing. But that just wasn't true. I do have fear. I still have fear, even though I've been doing comedy for 12 years. It's just so uncertain and you don't know what kind of environment you're going to. It's scary. So now my mantra is that I feel the fear and do it anyway. So I'm just not walking around here lying saying I'm not scared. I am scared and nervous every time I hit the stage. But preparation is one thing, knowing that I have favor is another. Knowing that God has prepared me for these moments, all those things help soothe me. But yeah, I don't think as long as I'm performing, I don't think I'll ever be free of fear. I think the fear probably helps you be a little more disciplined,
Yeah.
because you don't want to be afraid and fail. I want to be fearful and then do well. And it's like, okay, good. I really had nothing to be afraid about the whole while.
I love that you mentioned mantras. Like I have my pre-show rituals that I do. What do you have any pre-show rituals that you perform before you get on stage?
I don't know if you call going to the bathroom 5 or 6 times a ritual, but I suppose that's what it is. So I'm going to the bathroom. I mean, number one, number two, I've never thrown up, but I feel like I might.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to have a bathroom near. And yeah, that's the only thing that really gives me like relief before I go up.
Hmm.
I got to be able to go to the bathroom. So bathroom ain't accessible, I probably won't perform well.
Let's go back and talk a bit more about you pivoting to comedy. What became like your comedy school? How did you learn the craft?
Well, because I'm a nerd, I did a lot of reading, and I kind of figured out it is academic to a sense. It can be scientific, joke writing and things like that. But also you just got to get on stage. Like repetition is the key. So yeah, I incessantly watched comedy. Red Fox, Moms Mabley, Sammy Davis Jr., of course, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, any George Carlin, any type of older famous comedian who folks still revere today. I was like, those are the people that I need to study and see what, if anything, I can deduct from their styles and their approach to my own. And that has been really helpful. But now I don't watch a whole lot of comedy,
Yeah.
because I'm not watching to enjoy. I'm still watching to listen to jokes set up and, oh, I would have done this. So it's not super enjoyable to watch comedy now. And you have to be careful. If you are fixated on somebody too much, you'll start sounding like them. And I don't want to subconsciously start doing somebody else's material. But I do watch also to see what other material folks are doing, because folks are quick to call you a joke thief and you may not even have even heard the joke before.
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope these days.
So if we can get nerd out a little bit. So let's say you're watching a comedy special by Eddie Murphy, right? Are
Mm-hmm.
you literally sitting there and saying to yourself, I'm going to pay attention to, let's say you're watching it one way and saying, I'm just going to pay attention to rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what was give us a little bit nitty gritty, or like, are you thinking what actually got me to get like a laugh out loud laughter? Like, how are you
Yeah.
deconstructing that?
So the things I noticed with Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy is vulnerability and transparency. So nothing they are saying is surface level. So when I first started doing comedy, I wasn't talking about personal stuff very much because I thought I'm just telling my business. But then I watched Richard Pryor, and he's talking about being on acid and domestic abuse and getting arrested. And I'm like, oh, you can talk about those things? I did not know that. So that's like you let all the barriers down, all the guards are down, and the crowd is just completely invested in whatever you're saying. And I think the crowd appreciates the vulnerability. So those are a couple things that I learned from Eddie and Richard Pryor. But then Eddie is really good with impressions. And I was like, okay, people react very well to impressions. And of course, his language was a little more forward than most, to the point that somebody like Bill Cosby has something to say. But I had to weigh all of that. So I'm like, well, do I curse or do I not have the real estate to do that because I'm a female comedian? So I just had to figure all these things out. And then, of course, somebody like Moms Mabley was always in character. And I thought, okay, that's something I could pursue as well. So it was just, looking at the genres and the styles, trying to see what, if anything, could fit me. Like I watched the Whoopi Goldberg One Woman Show. That was the project that put her on the map. I'm like, okay, one woman show that fits me as a talent. So yeah, you can get a little bit of something from everybody. Not to the point where you're just contorting yourself and you're just this smorgasbord of confusion, but you look and see, okay, this would work for me as well. Because there's no sense in reinventing the wheel if it's already been invented. You just put your own spin on things that already exist.
Mooney and I talk about that sometimes. It's like people have come before you, not because they're saying this is the road, but they're saying here are the tools, and then you go
Mm-hmm.
forge your own path. We actually wrote and developed our own web series, which is basically the Black queer version of Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing just that, what you're describing, Rita. I watched every episode of Seinfeld. I already was a Seinfeld fan, but like I rewatched it, but I watched it with a different lens. And I was
Mm-hmm.
really starting to understand structure and their voices and how are the stakes raised in each episode, all of that kind of nerding out, like you just
Yeah.
said,
Mm-hmm.
getting that analytical lens. And
Now, Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, I have literally sat down and taken notes with them because they are just masters to me. And Chris Rock's thing, I figured it out, is two things. He paces the stage like a lion. And
yes,
I had to read about it. I'm like, why does he never be still? And he's like, I have to make sure that people are continuing to be engaged. He doesn't want to stand in one spot, but he repeats things, so he might say, yeah, women are crazy. Women are crazy. And then he'll do a setup and then he'll say it again. Women are crazy. So it's like his thesis. And if you go back and look at any of his material, he's going to repeat that thesis a couple times. And then it's a couple supporting details. And then it's the punchline. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it.
it's
But
just
he's
like the
still not
law.
somebody you can mimic.
Yeah, you're
Mhm.
making a case for the audience, and like pacing can be like there's like nervous pacing, but the way Chris Rock struts on that
He's
stage,
prowling. Mhm.
yeah, you're like, oh shit, I better be on my toes. He might call on me.
Yeah, like I
That's
think they
right.
call it the Chris Rock shuffle, right? It's just
Okay.
incredible. So,
Mhm.
Rita, let's talk about your joke writing process, right? So, kind of walk us through when, something gets your attention, a topic, an idea, and how you develop it to get it to that masterful joke.
Well, I had a conversation with the great Roy Wood Jr. once about just that. And he said something pretty simple that I guess I hadn't thought about. He said a good joke should do one or two things. It should tell people something about you, or it should tell people what you believe in. And I was like, oh, well, that's a pretty easy template. And so I had just sent one of my sets to him and had him critique it. And he was like, you're leaving a lot of meat on the bone. So now when I write a joke, I'm like, does this reveal something about me, or does it give people insight on what I believe? So that's one of the ways that I write comedy. But a lot of my stuff is observational. And because I am a musical comedian, I am always trying to figure out, should this just be a joke, or could I incorporate music into this? So if you ever come to my shows, you'll see that I'm doing a lot of satirical songs and things. So that's great for me that I have that double weapon. I could just do classic jokes, or I could present the comedy in the form of music.
We talked about earlier how you have mentorships with Ricky Smiley and Cedric the Entertainer, juggernauts in the entertainment industry. Given your talent, it's not a surprise that they would want to attach themselves to you, and have you open for them on tour, correct?
Hmm. Yes.
And if you feel comfortable sharing, like, how did these relationships develop, and how did it get to the point where they were like, hey, like, come on tour with me?
Man, it's always just somebody vouching for you. I also consider it godly favor, but there's this comedy club in Birmingham called the Stardome, and I participated in an open mic contest there. Chi Chi, who is the wife of the owner of the comedy club, Bruce Ayers, she saw me at the open mic competition, and she said, "I think you need to meet Ricky Smiley. He has to see you. He needs to see you." And so maybe a week later, I was back at the Stardome, and they gave me a few minutes. Ricky was performing, and they gave me a few minutes on his show, and I did well. And his manager was like, "Okay, we want to put you on all the shows." And I was like, "Huh?" They're like, "Yeah, you were amazing. We want to put you on all the shows." And Ricky, that day, I met him, and he was just talking to me about language, making sure the curse words actually enhance the quality of the joke, that I'm not just gratuitously cursing. I had a little bottle of Jack Daniels, and he was like, you don't need that. Let everything that comes out of your mouth be natural and true to you. And that's how that connection happened. Just somebody was like, Ricky needs to meet you. And when the moment came, I met the moment, and I've been touring with him since 2016. And for Sid, there was a gig here in Jackson, Mississippi, in my hometown, and this guy named Chanel runs this pop-up comedy series, and he saw me performing in Jackson. I think I was opening up for Bill Bellamy. He brought him there, and he was like, "I think you should perform. I'm bringing Sid to Texas, and you should open up for him." And it was kind of the same situation. I opened up, I did well, and Sid's manager was like, "We're gonna put you on some shows," and I believe that was 2019. So that's how I got connected to Sid. And Sid is how I got into comedy writing. Yeah.
Comedy writing rooms?
Yeah, like writing for award shows. Um, Sid was hosting the Emmys. I think it was, I don't even know how long ago it was, but because I had been touring with him, he and I had, sent him some punch ups and stuff for his jokes. He was like, "I want you to be on the writing team for me," when he hosted the 73rd Emmys. And that was my first major gig. And you talk about fear. I was the baby in the room. Like, these folks was like, "Yeah, you remember when we wrote for Living Color and we wrote for Eddie Murphy?" Those are the kind of conversations they were having. And I was like, "Ooh, imposter syndrome. I don't think I belong in this room." But, since then, it has opened a lot of doors for me to write for other award shows. Shout out to Sid for that big up, and just taking a chance on a young comedian.
Okay, bring us to that moment. So you enter the room first day of the Emmys. How many people are we talking about that are around this table?
About 7 or 8.
7. And is it like diverse? Like what are we looking at?
Primarily black. There might have been 2 white writers, but very well respected ones. But Sid had handpicked a lot of people, because not only was he hosting, he was producing. He's very smart with that. He's gonna get double credits. So yeah, it was a bunch of people in the room who had written for Sid before, and other folks who have written for other award shows. You kind of just get tapped, and it's like an ecosystem.
Gotcha. And for our listeners that don't know much about this world, how long do you have up till the day of the event to come up with basically the entire show?
Usually get started a couple months before the event, so that's just coming up with skits and bits and monologue. And I was out in California with Sid, and we were, going to comedy clubs, testing his monologue before, the day of the show when he actually performed it. So you have a couple months to get everything together. So it's plenty time, but it's just real stressful, because you are working with the artist as well. Some of them have bits they want to do, and some of them are taking bids for bits, so that can be scary, because you're like, are they gonna like it, or do they want to bring on their own writer?
Yeah. And I'm
So
thinking that
yeah.
you two, Rita, are you have to get really acquainted with Cedric's voice. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
have. So did you have to study like crazy?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I went back and watched all the specials, all the Kings of Comedy content, and touring with him helps as well, because I'm getting to see him perform for an hour to an hour and a half each night, so I know his voice in my sleep.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So day one, you start this new job. You mentioned imposter syndrome. Are you kind of out the gate asked to come up with ideas that first day? Is it
We
Give
all
us a
are.
sense of that. Oh,
Yeah, it's like, okay, Drew Barrymore is going to be on the show. Let's come up with something for her. So everybody will just go to the drawing board, and then you come back. The ideas are presented, and you pick the top one or two, and then everybody builds off those. So it's very competitive in the writer's room because everybody wants their thing to get on. But I had a conversation with a good friend of mine. His name is Sean Larkins, and he was writing for The Neighborhood at the time, which is said sitcom on CBS. And Sean was like, hey, if your thing doesn't get picked, don't take it personal. Like some things get picked, some things get axed. Just keep it moving. Don't dwell on anything. So I always had that in my head. Like, all right, it's not that it's not good. It might just not be the right fit for this particular artist or performer. So yeah, you just have to have thick skin, but also try to be assertive and as creative as possible. Of course, my weapon is music. So anything that involves music, I really, really try to lean into that because I can do a scratch track real quick to give you an idea of what it's going to be instead of just talking about it. You can hear it. So yeah, that's one of the ways I try to get my bits in these writers' room by leading with my musical skills.
Love that. So in the room, is there an actual person who is representative of like the talent that is Cedric or Ricky Smiley?
Yeah, they're showrunners, producers. Sometimes we're all in the same room, brainstorming and ideating, and sometimes it's just the writers. But again, Sid was just very forward with I'm writing and producing and performing, so there was just direct working with him. But like with Ricky, I've done writing for him on the stand up side. And then that's just, me working with Ricky and figuring out jokes and how we want to approach things. So yeah, it varies, but it's a lot of pieces involved in award shows. And when you're writing for a sitcom, the producers have a lot to say, not more than the writers.
I was going to say, do you feel like it is, you mentioned competitive. Do you feel like it is, though, collaborative as well? Like, I can assume, a room could go really left if it's just people just trying to up each other as opposed to people just saying the best joke wins, like the one that gets the best laugh as opposed to like favoritism and, the politics behind
Sure.
working with people.
Yeah, I'm thankful I've not had that experience where there's been divisiveness in a room. Usually, if you have a good head writer, they are able to navigate the room in a way where everybody feels included and valued. So John Max is the head writer that I've been working with the most, and he always does an amazing job of making sure everybody's idea is respected and being considered. It's not combative or abrasive, like, oh yeah, that sucks. And he gives folks credit. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't take the credit for things. So I think a writer's room is only as good as the head writer makes it. And when I wrote for Charlemagne's show, Charles McBee was the head writer, and he just was just an amazing leader. Made everybody feel heard and seen. So I think the head writer has a lot to do with the tone of a room.
I love it. When you were in these rooms, what's sort of the ratio men women?
It was pretty even for Charlemagne's show, but in the other rooms I've been in, it's typically, of course, fewer women than men. And racially, we don't even want to get into that. Yeah. But yeah, men, just as they do the comedy industry in general, men dominate those rooms.
For now, Rita.
For now. Which award show was your favorite and why?
The Mark Twain Prize was fun.
That was for Adam Sandler?
Yes, when Adam Sandler was honored. That was pretty fun. People's Choice was pretty fun too. Yeah. They've all been great experiences. Some have just been higher pressure than others. But probably the top of the list is Music Cares, which I write for. It's the charitable arm of the Grammys, where Music Cares basically gives musicians any kind of financial assistance they need. So, let's just say a musician was caught in a tornado in Mississippi and they weren't able to perform or they lost instruments in the tornado. Music Cares would provide them financial support. So every year we honor a person of the year, and I've been writing for this show for the past 4 years, and I am the head writer for this thing because it's low. It's a low workload, so we only need one writer. But yeah, that has been great because, depending on who the person of the year is, they bring in all these artists to do tributes. So the year that they honored Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson, man, the performers were great. Stevie Wonder, PJ Morton, John Legend, folks like that coming in. So yeah, as a musician, I love to, of course, hear the music and get to meet some of my favorite musicians as well.
That's awesome. Rita, you've worked on so many shows. I'm curious to know, is there a TV show in development or that has been developed that you would love to work on?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say my own.
There you go.
Yep.
Late Night with Rita Brent.
Yep, that's where that book starts and ends. Because, when you are in this industry, it's really hard to watch and enjoy projects because you feel like you should be doing it. So maybe that's just been an inner battle for me. Then like I don't want to watch stuff because I'm like I wish this were me on the screen, or what do I need to do to get to this point? So I'm just trying to do the work and not sit back and fantasize over what other people have going on because I'm trying to get where they are. So yeah, I
So
need
it's
to
kind of
be.
like you don't want to be distracted by it?
That's correct. I don't want to be distracted and I don't want to be discouraged because sometimes I look and I'm like, man, what's this shit? You know what I mean? And I see roles that I tried out for and I didn't get, and it can be a little discouraging. So it's like me trying to protect my peace and keep my motivation intact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talked about it the other day. There was a very famous comedian. They have their own talk show. And, that's my goal. That's our goal for us to have, the Moonie Devereaux show, like a daytime TV talk show. That's why, doing stand up, that's why Jess and I write. That's one of the main goals. And so I called you and I was like, can you believe this? Like, this is absolute trash. Like, how is this on television right now? Like, but it is what it is. And like Rita was saying, you got to stay focused. You got to stay the course, and you just got to keep creating and not let it distract you, and just continue to stay motivated.
Yeah, and I feel like I told you too. I was like, Mooney, that just shows you it's
For
possible.
sure.
Like all those people that are doing these things that you want to do, it's just sort of the universe whispering to you, it's possible. It's possible, right? It's like
That's how you got to look at it for sure.
yeah, you got all of the right stuff. You got all the right talent, work ethic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just know it's possible, just the way it happened for that person.
And I talked to Jess about this, Rita. Like, we're all about on the job training. Like Will Smith, when he had no acting experience and his first acting role was a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? So are you into that as well? Like, just throw me in, I'll figure it out, and I'll soar and thrive with whatever project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing the work in terms of acting classes and training. I would prefer that because I think Will Smith was just an anomaly because sometimes you'll see somebody from social media on a project and he'd be like, damn, they ain't take no acting classes. It just don't translate. You know what I mean? You looking, you thinking it's going to be the same person on social media, but you're not thinking that they have edited all those things before they post. So you can't edit on set. You know what I'm saying? You just got to deliver. So I think for the sake of not embarrassing myself, I would prefer to do some acting classes and get some real training. I mean, I think just in general, I have natural talent. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't be able to figure it out. But yeah, I want to be prepared. I want to be over prepared. So yeah, teach me something.
What would be like a cool acting role for you? Like playing the best friend, the lead, the young auntie, like
Yeah, I think when you think of the classic sitcoms that we all love, your Pams and L'Oreal and Get Out, just that comedic relief where you're giving a flash of who you are. And then folks are like, okay, well, that's enough for me to give you another flash and another flash. So I think just like an introductory role to get on the scene, but doing so well in that role that folks are, willing to invest and give more chances. But yeah, I mean, what's Martin without Pam? You know what I mean? What is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air without Carlton? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a basketball team. All those little roles matter.
You're almost like the sandpaper roll, you're gonna brush up against the lead and make them smoother, but it's just that lovely scratchy,
Oh yeah.
contact that makes it worth leaning in and watching every week.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so just kind of pivoting a bit, given these trying times, challenging times, how do you maintain your joy, Rita?
Well, that is a daily challenge. I at the beginning of this year made a promise to myself to just do something fun every day. And I don't mean like I have to spend a lot of money, but even if it's just sitting in front of my space heater playing Candy Crush, that's fun to me. You know what I mean? Playing Tetris on my laptop, Pac-Woman, Pac-Man, Pac-Woman. All that is fun to me. So as an entrepreneur, you kind of inevitably become a workaholic because nobody's setting your hours. And so you can literally wake up at 6 a.m. and work till 10 p.m. at night and still feel like you didn't do enough. So I had to make that promise to myself because I felt myself becoming a workaholic and burning out a little bit. So yeah, every day I just commit to doing something fun, whether that's going to get some Thai tea, going for a walk with my new puppy, just something that'll bring me joy, even if it's just for a brief moment and allows me to reset before I get back in work mode.
Oh, new puppy. What's the new puppy's name?
His name is Fonzie, Sir Fonzie Jr., aka Farnsworth Bentley. He is a poodle, 7 months old, 30 pounds. He is beautiful. He gets car sick, so we're working through that.
Rita, quick question for you. When did you feel like you found your tribe? Or are you still looking for your tribe? Like, how would you describe like your audience?
I think my audience is predominantly Southern. Yeah, if I'm looking at my insights, it's Mississippi, Atlanta, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. I think I am just true to my Southern culture and Southern roots with my content and my accent. And yeah, I think folks from the South are my tribe. And when I go to the West Coast, I am received well on the East Coast as well. But I don't feel as comfortable as I do in the South, Yeah, it's like some ancestral connection there, cultural connection that you just can't necessarily find elsewhere. Yes.
Can I
Point
just
blank.
say, as a Yankee, though, Rita, I've watched you perform numerous times in New York. You are very well received. So sometimes I think a lot of things are in our head. So I just want to
I can agree with
encourage you
that.
to let that go because you're very well received. And people find you hilarious here in New York, and
I can agree with
yeah.
that. I have great comedic experiences in New York, and it feels warm there, But if we're talking about a great migration, Mississippi, Chicago, same damn thing. You know what I mean? Same. There's a ton of Mississippians in New York. A ton.
Really?
Yeah, they in Harlem. Yeah, they're there. Southern folks, we just sprinkled out everywhere. I'll never forget. I was in Nigeria. I was on a music tour, and we got to this venue. I was playing with my best friend Tania. She's a singer songwriter, and this guy just walked up, and I was like, "Where are you from?" He was like, "I'm from Mississippi." I'm like, "Damn, I'm meeting a Mississippian all the way in Nigeria." It was crazy, But yeah, you can't escape the South. It doesn't matter where you are geographically.
That's a movie title right there. You can't escape the South. I love that.
It's a
I'm gonna have
comedy.
to write that, Rita.
It's a
Yeah,
comedy.
comedy. Okay, we are going to transition now to our section of the show that we call A Dip in the Deep End.
Okay, I cannot swim, by the way. So
come on, Mississippi.
Let's preface
I'll save
that.
you, Rita. I'll save you.
So we ask our guests 3 questions. So first question is, what do you love about stand-up comedy?
What do I love about stand-up comedy? I love the reactions when they are good reactions. There is nothing like getting chills from hearing a room of 2,500, 3,000 people laughing at something that you wrote. That is extremely fulfilling. At the same time, when they ain't laughing, it ain't fulfilling at all. It's like, oh shit, I need to quit. Listen, when everything's connecting on all cylinders, there's no greater feeling than that. Yeah.
Definitely have called Rita and been like, I totally bombed. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And she's totally like built me up. And so thank you so much for always being there for me. I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, we have to provide that to each other. You know what I'm saying? It's just like we can't just be down at the same time. You know what I'm saying? We could just take turns. But I also like the connectivity that stand-up comedy gives. On a weekly basis, somebody is like, hey, I was in the hospital room and on my deathbed, and I watched your comedy and I got better. Stuff like that reminds you, oh, okay, this ain't just about jokes. It's about laughter, it's healing, and it's therapy as well. So, being able to have that gift, where you can impact people like that, yeah, you can't. I don't take that for granted.
So on the other side of the coin, like what pisses you off about comedy?
What pisses me off about comedy? Being offered chump change. Yeah, man. I mean, some people generally just don't know what they should be paying, they're not aware of industry standard. But some folks just act like, you can just come tell a few jokes, and it's just kind of cheapening the gift. So that pisses me off when folks are intentionally doing it, not when folks are unintentionally doing it, because like I said, comedy is new to Mississippi in terms of, hey, I want a comedian for this event. Everybody's just not, up to date on things like that. But when you were intentionally trying to lowball me, yeah, that pisses me off. Because nobody works hard and builds a significant resume to make 150 days.
And I
Yeah.
think like there are people who just think like, oh, so what you're just getting up and talking? Like, what's so hard about that?
Right.
Or,
But then you ask them to get up there and do it and they can't.
oh no, they can't even say their name right.
Right.
Okay, final question. So, if you were to go back in time and you're talking to 20-something-year-old Rita and she's just starting out her comedy career, what advice would you give her?
What advice would I give a younger Rita? Get you a damn 401k, some retirement, get a stash. You got to have an emergency fund. This is not the stuff they're teaching in school. They still teaching Pythagorean theorem and shit like that I have yet to use, and pi and all of that damn. Listen, teach folks about taxes
Yep.
and life insurance and investing and stocks. So that's what I would tell young Rita. Like, learn how to be more proficient with money.
The starving artist ain't cute. Moonie and I talk about this all the time. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not co-signing that.
Yeah, it takes money to do things, to be creative and invest in your show. You need startup funds and all those type things. So, it's cool. It feels cool to just be spending money frivolously when you're young. But, that money could come in handy as you get older. So, yeah, just be responsible with money and learn about it. Regardless of if they teach you about it in school, you still need to know. Oh, and one more thing about what I would tell 20-year-old Rita, just be vulnerable quicker. Yeah, just go ahead and put it all out there, because also what you do is protect yourself from a lot of stuff when you own up to who you are, what you've done, those growth spurts that we go through, and just not having that veil of perfection. For comedy, just go ahead and be honest and more vulnerable quicker, and it'll literally pay off. Yeah, my comedy changed when I started telling my business. That's facts.
Wow. Great advice.
And you like claim your power, right? Nobody can hold anything over on you.
There you go.
You're like,
Yep.
it's out. I put it out there.
Yep, I remember that in Jennifer Lewis's book, Mother of Black Hollywood. She was like, I'm just going to admit to everything I've done. She's like, yeah, I was a hoe. I was a hoe when I first began acting. And now what? Now you can't go to TMZ and tell TMZ I was a hoe, because I'm telling you I was a hoe. And that's it. You get to claim your power and control your narrative. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a pleasure, Rita. You have brought so much insight into the world of comedy. I appreciate you being so vulnerable and also just promoting vulnerability. Me and I talk about this often. We're on this journey. We bet on ourselves, pivoted professionally. And it's really this process of like removing the mask,
Mhm.
that we've all been sort of programmed to wear, and being like having an immigrant background, like as a survival tool oftentimes, and being Black, being a woman, et cetera, so you just expressing that, it really resonated with me. And I just appreciate you so much. And I can't wait to see what you end up doing. There's going to be so much more.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
speaking of that, what is the end goal? Like, what does Rita? Genie came down and was like, granted you this one wish with your career. What would that one wish be?
I think the wish would be to get the late night show picked up and to make a shit ton of money per episode. Before I started the late night show, I watched this documentary about Johnny Carson, and man, he was making a shit ton of money. I was like, whoa, he's making all this money. And I'm like, I have that skill set. Like, I am worthy of those dollar amounts. So that's what I would want, for the genie to grant me the wish of having a network pick up the late night show, but with a network that respects who I am as an artist and a human.
Your creative autonomy.
Yeah, because there's so many stories about folks entering oppressive deals, and there are so many horror stories about them leaving shows, and you find out everything they were going through. I don't want difficulty. I don't want chaos. I want acceptance and favor. And yeah, that's what I would hope, because with the late night show, I get to use all the skill set. I was a radio host for 11 years before I became a comedian. So with the interviewing stuff, I get to use my radio skill set. And then, of course, there's a stand-up comedy and improv, and then music. Like, I wrote all the music from a late night show, the theme song and the transition music. So yeah, I would like to monetize all these gifts once and for all.
You will. And I love that worthiness component that you mentioned, because I think that's such an integral piece in manifesting one's dreams, is believing that you're worthy of attaining it. And I love that you have that self-awareness, that the worthiness muscle must be strong. And we know that you're going to get it. We know you're going to get it.
Thank you.
All in the higher power's time. So just keep doing what you're doing, creating joy and laughter for your audience and your fan.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Moonie.
And how can our viewers find you on social media? And if you could share, some of your upcoming projects and what you're working on, and how they can just stay connected to you.
On all social media, follow me at Rita Brent Comedy. That's RITABRENT on Instagram, Twitter. You can follow me on YouTube as well, and Threads. So all of the shit, pretty much. I'm on it.
This has been such a joy, Rita. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all for having me, and I wish you well. Moonie, thanks so much. You gave me, when I did the Black of All Trades that you hosted, you gave me a necklace with a little microphone on it, and I wear it everywhere. It is my good luck charm.
I love that. You're welcome. You're so welcome. So welcome. Thank you for having me host your stand-up special. So I was truly honored.
It was a fun
night. It was a fun night. Great crowd.
Again, thank you so much, Rita, for joining us. And as we like to say, the shortest distance between two people is a good laugh.
So let's keep laughing, keep connecting, and we'll see you right here on the next episode of A Good Laugh.